Former Alabama quarterback A.J. McCarron is going after Florida State's new starting quarterback Thomas Castellanos. We got a handful of things to discuss there as Florida State has a football game against the Crimson Tide next month in the newly renovated Doak Campbell Stadium. Welcome to Hear the Spear, presented to you by NoleGameday.com. I am Logan Robinson. Over to the side is Dustin Lewis, our editor-in-chief at NoleGameday.com, and all the way to the other side is Austin Veazey. We've got a jam-packed show today. Florida State staying hot on the recruiting trail, landing a 5-star. We'll dive deep into that one, along too with a very talented defensive lineman we talked about heavily in last week's show. Sure enough, Terrence Knighton and the Tony White Seminoles defense get a really talented guy in the trenches. Also, too, Urban Meyer. He believes FSU is in some serious trouble with their new NIL structure. We'll discuss that, along with, too, some EA Sports stuff, all kinds of content. I know Veazey and Dustin have been all over the game since that dropped yesterday. We're going to talk about where Florida State Seminoles landed in the depth chart there, projecting as the EA Sports released that, along with the top offensive and defensive players that they graded on the game. And then we're going to talk about some latest on the NIL lawsuit involving Leonard Hamilton. I feel like this is now just going to become like, this is getting really political now. This is like a political podcast, man. During the offseason, it's all NIL lawsuits, who's going after who, what's happening, recruits, transfer, what, I don't even know, but we've got a jam-packed show. Gentlemen, how we doing?
Doing great. I'm trying to, take it a little light this week, pick up the control a little bit, play some college football 26. I mean, heck, this is the most that we've gotten to experience this 2025 football team this offseason, honestly.
Yeah, I am tired because I was way too late last night playing it.
I'll label you up.
Some questions don't need an answer.
Are we talking about like 3, 4?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's go. Let's go
more
with
than
that.
I went early then. He does look like he did just wake up.
No, the game's a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun playing it. It really is a blast, and I know we'll talk about it here later.
The worst part is, I was writing some articles on it. So the game loads up, and instead of getting to play, I'm sitting there having to write these articles before I even get to do anything. And I'm like, come on. And then I had to go to a doctor's appointment. Finally got back and got to play for a little bit. And for whatever reason, Tommy Castellanos is just so inaccurate in the game. And I'm overthrowing just wide open passes, deep, short, in the flat. I'm just like, what the hell?
I found you're just bad at the game because on Heisman on Dynasty, I'm like 80% completion with him. So
hey, well, when I played FCS Northeast, I went off.
Really rough defense you're going against there. I can't say anything though, because the first time, that wasn't fair for me just to play Austin Veazey the first day that it dropped.
There's a reason we didn't do a stream this year.
No. It wouldn't have been worth a damn. There was no competition. I couldn't show anything off at all from any player on FSU's team. So, yeah, we'll dive deep into the EA Sports depth chart that they released of FSU and the top offensive and defensive graded players. But let's start off with what you guys came here for. On the thumbnail and the title, A.J. McCarron, former Alabama quarterback, going after and talking some trash there back to Thomas Castellanos. As we know, a couple weeks ago, Thomas Castellanos came out and was very vocal about the FSU versus Alabama matchup, saying, you don't have Nick Saban anymore with the Crimson Tide. Doesn't feel like they can just stop him with his legs, a whole lot of things. And sure enough, we've heard from a handful of the other side, some of the current guys on Alabama's roster just putting out some emojis and stuff reacting to Castellanos' comments. And we heard from Mark Ingram, too, last week on Urban Meyer's podcast. And then now we're hearing from A.J. McCarron. Who would have ever thought? But here we are. This is via the Dynasty podcast, and this is McCarron saying, where do you even start? You're going to a team that was 17th out of 17 teams in the ACC. You're leaving a team and lost a starting job where you finished 9th in the ACC. Listen, I'm all for confidence, but this is stupidity. Just ask if he still has a relationship, which I doubt he does because he yanked him from his starting job. But Bill O'Brien, call him up, ask Bill how Alabama is, what type of players they have, how they play the game, and let OB tell you, hey, Thomas, you might want to stay quiet on this one. Just go out and play. McCarron continued here and had some more to say. He also said, you just added fuel to the fire, my brother. I promise you, I wouldn't want to be you the first game of the year. I don't care how well you can run, how well you can throw it. Once you stand in that pocket and get hit a couple times, that accuracy that dipped, that cost you the starting job, you better find it quick this offseason and during that game, because it ain't going to be good. I think this is exactly what Thomas Castellanos wanted. I mean, it seems to be working a little bit. I think at first, though, to me, Castellanos was going into the locker room at FSU, maybe since, maybe we need to get a little bit of some energy going, maybe some confidence going into this game, FSU versus Alabama. Until Castellanos started talking, there was not a whole lot of chatter about what should have been a big time game. But when you go 2-10, a lot of things fall off, and now it's a 3:30 kickoff. You don't have a prime time kickoff, yada, yada, yada. But Castellanos has sure enough been able to give a lot of buzz going into this game than what it was a month ago, I'd say.
It's certainly added some storylines, and now you're getting a little bit of fuel on both sides. Obviously, Tommy got it started with what he said a couple weeks ago, and then now, whether it's the players on social media reacting to it, or you've got AJ McCarron and some other personalities that have provided their take on what Castellanos said. But I mean, either way, like we talked about last week, Tommy Castellanos is a guy who has a chip on his shoulder and is looking for anything to take motivation from. And like you said, Logan, maybe this is what he wanted. He wanted to see those responses, to have a little bit extra on his plate. And also Florida State, seeing this stuff as well, and guys firing back at their quarterback. You're going to have two very motivated teams on August 30th whenever Florida State and Alabama kick off. And, you can't say that AJ McCarron is necessarily wrong. Florida State was the worst team in the ACC last year, and Tommy Castellanos had his struggles fitting into Bill O'Brien's offense at Boston College, and that led to him departing from the team before the conclusion of the season. He talked about that a little bit in that interview with On3 as well, and how things went with Bill O'Brien. But either way, Tommy Castellanos came to Florida State to rebound going into his final season at the college level, and he's got a very familiar face with him, as everyone knows, an offensive coordinator, Gus Malzahn, who recruited him out of high school. And the hope is that Tommy Castellanos not only is going to help Florida State get back on the right track, but he's going to respond and have a much better season in an offense that fits his strengths.
Yeah, really the only thing I found strange about McCarron's comments is being like, go ask Bill O'Brien. Well, Bill O'Brien didn't like Tommy either. This wasn't a one-way street. Like, they just didn't mesh. They didn't get along whatsoever. So I don't know why. I do know why he signed with Bill O'Brien, because Bill O'Brien's a former Alabama guy, was their offensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get why McCarron's saying that, but that's a two-way street. That's not just Castellanos leaving because Bill O'Brien didn't like him. Neither party liked each other. But other than that, I don't disagree with what he's saying. And it's a lot of what we said last week. Florida State was a bad team. Let's see it on the football field first before we're saying we want Bama and writing it on the back windshield. But, I get it.
And as we all know, Bill O'Brien wasn't the biggest fan of Jalen Milroe either. And now he's off in the NFL as a top draft pick to the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, there was a comment here too, just talking about his passing. Once you stand in that pocket, hit a couple of times, that accuracy that dipped, that cost you the starting job. I think there's definitely a little bit more that went into that, of course. And we knew that, Bill O'Brien was going to try to make him a pocket passer. And that just isn't the case with just his skill set that Thomas Castellanos brings. But you brought up a point here, Dustin, about Gus Malzahn and how this offense is going to navigate. We're early in, just a little bit here before, we're going to get into some fall camp. We'll see if we'll have any media availability at these practices. But I think it's going to be a big deal to see this offensive line click too with what Thomas Castellanos brings with his running threat, because you didn't have a whole ton of that chemistry being built in the spring, right, Dustin? You had a handful of guys that were out. You had Micah Pettis out, Gunnar Hansen, your two starting tackles. You had some guys on the inside a little banged up as well. But you feel really good about your center with Pettibon there. Like you feel pretty good moving forward with that offensive line. What are your thoughts about, what this offense is going to shape into looking like with Gus Malzahn as offensive coordinator, but Thomas Castellanos, because this is the first time this is really an offense built around Tommy C.
It could be really exciting. I think it's going to depend on the chemistry that Florida State's able to build whenever fall camp kicks off here in a couple of weeks. Like you mentioned, they missed some valuable reps during the spring, not only with projected starters out on the offensive line. You mentioned both the guys at tackle. Richie Leonard was still working his way back after that season-ending injury in 2024. And then, I mean, you had some injuries pop up at wide receiver, at running back. So I think it's really important for Florida State to be as healthy as possible as they begin fall camp, and to really have a couple of weeks where they can establish chemistry, a rhythm, because, I mean, it's going to be a really tough test going out there against Alabama for the first time in your actual live game reps. And I mean, Florida State, they're going to need to have all cylinders rolling on August 30th. They can't be waiting a week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you're not playing. And then, going over to the defensive side of the ball, I just wonder kind of how, we haven't heard a whole ton of guys coming out publicly talking, backing up a whole lot of Thomas Castellanos. And I think that's pretty interesting. I think too, it just goes to show maybe, the maturity of that locker room, maybe, but it's just very interesting to see Thomas Castellanos. And then usually you do have some defensive guys talking. You would think maybe you get some Earl Little Jr., maybe to get some Daryl Jackson up, but these guys are locked in with Tony White, and really interested to see how this defensive side of the ball looks, because there isn't a whole ton of depth there. And, I think the offense is going to have to help out the defense too in this upcoming season, which is not the easiest to say, because what we saw last year, that offense was not finding a lot of success to be able to stay out there on the field and to sustain drives. And when you have limited depth, I'd say in some certain key parts of that defense, it's not going to be easy once you start. If you do, knock on wood, but if you go through these injuries, it kind of put yourself into a tough situation in some parts. But I'm kind of inching. I'm like, just ready to rev up and get into this fall camp, because it's been a whole lot of talk, and now we're getting FSU versus Alabama buzz. Like, let's get this thing going. I'm really interested to see how fall camp looks, but I don't expect for us to have availability out there. We'll see. Who knows? But if we weren't there in the spring, I doubt we're going to be out there, certainly for whenever Florida State's in preparation for the Crimson Tide.
I would lean towards you being correct.
Yeah, I don't think so. Let's jump over to a 5-star that landed with Florida State. This was a big time grab, and Dustin will be able to give a lot more detail on this one. But this is a 5-star cornerback, Chauncey Kennan, joining Tribe 26 over Miami, Florida, Georgia, Oregon, and LSU. You could arguably say one of the biggest wins in Mike Norvell's tenure at Florida State, ranked as the number 2 cornerback per 247 Sports, the number 4th player in the state of Florida, and ranked as the number 27th overall player. D-Lou, we were prepping. You had this in the shells ready to go. It seemed like Florida State had themselves in a very good spot in this recruitment. And sure enough, Pat Surtain, man, it just continues to reload there in what is already a pretty talented 2026 defensive back class as well.
Yep, Florida State has its crown jewel of Tribe 26 and 5-star cornerback Chauncey Kennan. And this is a guy that the Seminoles have been pursuing for a long time, invested a lot of resources in, and now they're able to get a signature win on the recruiting trail here still early on in July, with the potential to add some more prospects in the coming days. But Chauncey Kennan, not only one of the best prospects in the state of Florida, but one of the top recruits in the entirety of this 2026 recruiting cycle. And, he's been high on Florida State for a long time. And it seemed like his official visit to Tallahassee last month kind of helped the Seminoles seal the deal here in this recruitment. And Chauncey Kennan, man, probably going to play cornerback at the college level. He's got that length, that athleticism that Florida State searches for in the defensive backfield. And, he instantly becomes the top recruit for FSU in this 2026 class. And like you said, Logan, joins a pretty talented DB class as well, where Florida State has already added 4 other 4-star guys, and including a guy who we talked about last weekend, flipping Jay Timmons from Indiana. But, Chauncey Kennan also, if he signs with Florida State, obviously FSU's got to get the deal done, get him to sign in December, but he would be the second highest recruit that Florida State has signed since Mike Norvell arrived in Tallahassee, behind former FSU wide receiver Hakeem Williams. But, just as we know, it's kind of been elusive for Florida State to land 5-star recruits over the last half decade or so. they've had some guys committed. You know, you think back to the Travis Hunters, obviously the KJ Boldens, and they weren't able to finish that at the early signing period with Kennan. You know, they're going to look to lock in this recruitment, get that signature in December, and this is a guy who could be a key piece for Florida State in the years to come.
A nice snag here. Just looking, I don't know if you were able to give out the stats. I'm trying to bring over his 247 Sports profile, but 33 tackles, 16 pass deflections, 1 interception return for a touchdown, 1 forced fumble in his junior season at Booker High School. He also recorded 10 catches for 316 yards and 6 touchdowns on offense. He had a 3-catch, 101-yard, 2-touchdown game, and also a pick 6 plus 3 deflections and a playoff loss there against Reigns. I mean, that's a crazy ass stat line there for him. But going from a 2026 class ranked as 13 to 11, creeping into that top 10 after what Florida State had going on the field last year. It's impressive. And like you said there, you just got to get him to sign, though. You know, it always feels like Florida State builds up a whole lot of this momentum, and you're finding that stride going into the season and years past before last year. You know, you're winning games, you're able to have success, but even sometimes, though, you lose out on your biggest recruits, like you said, Dustin, and that are even committed to you. And it's a big blow, but you got to see if you can finish it off. And you know, Florida State, though, you got to give them props where they deserve it right now, and they've found a solid stride at the high school level. And I do wonder if they predicated a lot of more of their resources and gone back to the drawing board after last year's debacle in the transfer portal class and said, hey, we got to go back and we got to get to that high school ranks, which, you know, Florida State, you could say good and bad things about it. It's like a roller coaster ride for Mike Norvell and his tenure at Florida State, but getting back in the high school ranks and being able to recruit there, definitely in your region, in the Southeast, specifically Florida as well. Some of those guys really talented around your area as well. They've got to do a better job of, but right now they've been able to do that. And I just do wonder if a lot of that attention has gone to the high school ranks after the fallout and that transfer portal class.
And I will say, you know, this one, picking up Chauncey Kennan, it could be a little bit different for Florida State. I'm getting some shades of Derwin James in this recruitment. Yesterday on Instagram, Chauncey Kennan put out on his story, he's actually got a Florida State Seminoles logo tattooed on his leg. And he put in there, basically been trying to hide this one for a while. So it sounds like Chauncey Kennan, you know, he's had that tattoo for a little bit. And even throughout those official visits last month, I guess he was wearing some high socks to hide that thing.
Yeah, I had to hide. Dude, that's actually crazy, though, because I do remember Derwin James rocking that Seminole head that he had tattooed very early on in his playing career. And sure enough, seems like he's fully locked in. You never know. I mean, that's the thing. You can't even get a tattoo. You could get a tattoo on your cheek of an FSU logo. I can't say it's fully committed until pen hits the paper. But this young man definitely does seem like he's going to be a Seminole signing. Is this going to be early signing day or regular signing day? I would imagine.
Yeah, it should be in December, and then he's a guy who's expected to enroll at Florida State in January. So, you know, we'll see if they're able to finish this thing off when it gets to December. But, you know, to pick up Chauncey Kennan and a guy who we were talking about last week during the show, 4-star defensive lineman Ernest Rankins, he went ahead and committed to Florida State over Auburn shortly after we got off the show last week. I mean, you've gotten 2 really big additions. I think those guys, Chauncey Kennan, obviously the top commit for Florida State in this Tribe 26 class, and I believe Rankins is the second highest rated commit. Yeah. So, I mean, they've pulled in 2 big fishes over the last week, and like I said, I don't think it's necessarily done for Florida State. You've got some guys deciding in the next couple of days. 4-star linebacker Rodney Colton Jr., 3-star tight end Landon Myrie, 3-star defensive end Control Webb. We'll see about 4-star offensive tackle Wilson Zier, who we've talked about a couple times, an international recruit out of Germany. And Florida State has a huge need at offensive tackle, obviously, in this 2026 class. So wouldn't surprise me if by the time we hop back on here next week, there's at least one more commit on board for the Seminoles.
Yeah, look at this. I mean, you're grabbing Kennan, Ernest, who, like you were saying there, we were looking out for that commitment. We thought maybe it would happen live last week on the show. Didn't happen, but sure enough, though, Terrence Knighton, which it's always pivotal to have playmakers in the defensive line, something that has been lacking, in my opinion, for a good long while. Ernest Rankins, 6'4", 265. That's a big cat. That's a big cat right there, gentlemen. Ranked as a top 5 defensive lineman per someone's rankings. Someone's rank. I don't know. I saw a graphic.
Not the ones you're currently looking at.
Not the one that I know. That's not the one I'm currently looking at. But someone's graphic had him.
But of the 9, you were showing 9 guys on that page, like starting with Chauncey Kennan. I think it was showing 9 guys. 8 of those guys have committed to Florida State since last month. So, it just goes to show they've really stacked up the star power here, really since the middle part of June. And like I said, I think it's just going to continue here. You're at 22 commitments right here on July 8th. I think Florida State's probably pushing for that 27, 28 mark to kind of fill out this 2026 class and go from there, especially, with the roster limit being set at 105, and they're not necessarily just recruiting for 85 scholarships like they were before. So I think it changes the dynamic a little bit on the recruiting trail and allows you to bring a couple more guys in each recruiting class.
Mm-hmm. Momentum, baby. And just imagine if you were to seal a win against Alabama. Imagine if you could do that, what that would do for you on the recruiting trail to excel that. Dustin, you were shaking your head when I was talking about it in the intro, but your best friend, Urban Meyer, had something to say about Florida State's NIL structure, the new NIL structure. He thinks that Florida State's in some serious trouble here. He was talking on his podcast with Mark Ingram, the host of the Triple Option. He was talking about this new structure that Florida State has laid out there and has given some strong comments on it. He says that I think what's happening is the pendulum swung so far that the players could leave anytime, unlimited transfers, NIL, no limitations, no guardrails, and now it's swinging back, and some people that shouldn't be involved are getting too involved, and they're putting the power struggle that I've never seen anything like that. Recruiting, it's over. You can't recruit, and in case you haven't noticed, college football is about recruiting. I'll make this statement. If this is legit, if this goes through, which I'm so skeptical, then the days of Florida State are numbered. It won't happen. It can't happen, and no chance. He's talking about a report here from CBS Sports' Chris Hummer and talking about FSU's preliminary player contracts that include fines up to $2,500 for lost equipment and potential contract termination if a player suffers an injury. A Big Ten general manager, anonymous one, said he called the approach not normal and said that the fine print is too aggressive. Mark Ingram also gave some thoughts on it too, said players aren't going to go there because, for one, this contract gives Florida State way too much control over your future and your money. It exposes you to risk, injury, discipline, loss of leverage, all of that. So if you're a top player and you've got Florida State as your top university and they give you this, I'm sure there's another university that is going to give you better conditions and treat you like a partner and not an asset. So probably just saying, just don't go to FSU, Mark Ingram saying, because of NIL language in these contracts.
And I think
NIL contracts.
I think another thing that they were harping on is, I guess there was a clause where if a guy is signed with Florida State and they get to the end of season, Florida State can unilaterally extend the contract at the same amount instead of having to go back to the negotiating table. But just regardless, the House settlement is brand new. It's not like we've been doing this for a year. Even a year, but 10 years. This is a completely new to the space. And what's the standard? What's the precedent? There really isn't one right now. That's kind of what we're establishing here going into this 2025 season. So it just makes me wonder, you've got anonymous general managers commenting on this. I'd be interested to see what their contracts look like and some of their peers. And then Urban Meyer, it's like, how many NIL contracts from schools have you actually read, or are you just going off the report that Hummer put out there from CBS Sports, which coincidentally enough came on the back of that run by Florida State on the recruiting trail. They go on that 2 or 3 big run, and they're landing all these commitments. And suddenly here we go with the dirty laundry coming out against Florida State, who went 2-10 last season. I mean, seriously.
More the merrier. More Urban Meyer comments and Mark Ingram. Heat them up, baby. It seems to be working for Florida State in these NIL bad contracts, it seems like.
Yeah, this is interesting because if you're gonna talk about the person morally ethical with recruiting, Urban Meyer is definitely the guy to go to here.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, it seems to be the biggest change for Florida State's NIL contracts is that they can terminate or renegotiate on the terms of an on-field football injury. That seems to be the biggest, the thing that people are pointing out the most, because a lot of teams from the CBS article have clauses for off-field injuries, which makes sense. But the on-field injuries is a little interesting, and especially with the clause that Florida State can just extend the contract and not renegotiate. Those parts are definitely interesting. I'm curious to see if those change over the next few years as teams figure out how to do these revenue sharing contracts. But I can see why Florida State would want to lock players into this contract, and if the players are going to agree to it, I don't see why not. I just don't know how long they will agree to it.
Mm-hmm. There was a statement too from Florida State's side that they put out, practically defending the approach of this new NIL contract structure. Talking about as we enter into a new age of collegiate athletics, Florida State has put together an agreement that provides deliverables and expectations for all parties. Each individual situation will be unique, and the hypotheticals are impossible to predict. However, we are committed to continuing to provide an elite experience for our student athletes in all aspects of their collegiate career. Florida State is looking forward to mutually beneficial partnerships with our student athletes in this new era. Isn't this just so much fun? Who's having fun? This is so much fun. This is
college sports, baby.
Man, we get to talk about Urban Crier.
Thank God this isn't in the new video game. I can not worry about it there.
Oh yeah, get ready, buddy. You're gonna be doing NIL contracts. You're gonna be setting up all these different languages that you're gonna have to get a dude to sign with you, a 3-star tight end.
That would be the worst.
Oh Lord,
I already have to spend too much time recruiting on that game rather than actually playing. So yeah, let's add something else to take me away.
Yeah. I mean, it's just stuff. I mean, we'll see how things go. Like you were saying, Dustin, it's so early on, man. It's so early on with these things. And there's probably plenty of other schools that have either the same kind of structure, or even more dense than what Florida State maybe is getting controversial talked about, like across the country kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's just early, man. Nobody effing knows. It's just like all this AI crap. We have no idea what's going to look like in 6 months, a year from now. I mean, it's changed so rapidly. There's so many things that you can, it's hard to keep up with anyways, but
it's like, go read the 140 other FBS schools contract. I'm sure you'll find some stuff that concerns you as well. But I mean, just the magnifying glass seems to be focused on Florida State for whatever reason. And, I also think we're at the point where this is a negotiating table. I mean, Florida State has some of that language in their contract. And like Austin said, while some people may be cool with signing that contract and going ahead with it, others might want to negotiate certain terms and have it worded a different way. And I don't think Florida State would necessarily be against doing that.
And I'd also like to point out that a lot of these players have new agents that don't really know what they're doing, because it's such a new space with all these all NIL contracts and revenue sharing. There's so many things that either the agents don't have experience in, or they're just new agents entirely that these players are relying on. And sometimes it's not even agents, it's advisors and family friends and whatever else. So they're just gonna do what gets them money. Hopefully that gets better as these years go on, and that's part of the reason that players need a collective bargaining agreement sooner rather than later. But I still think we're a ways away from that.
And I think with how it's going now, I mean, college football needs to step in and make sure that these guys who are quote unquote agents or representatives or whatever have the right licensing and the right education, so that, like you said, Austin, people and players especially aren't the ones that end up being taken advantage of.
Please whoever's listening right now in the chats, please bring in just some actual football questions for us to get that out of our brains there. We need some football stuff to talk about, so please throw that in the chat. Also, too, if you're still hanging out with us, smack that like button. Appreciate y'all hanging out with us on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Gentlemen, we're getting close. We should be getting some dates soon for fall camp. Thomas Castellanos and the Noles hitting the practice field. So we got a lot of content coming for you guys. So appreciate y'all hanging out with us. And let's keep moving here. So EA Sports just dropped their new game, as we were talking about earlier in the show. These two have been playing it a whole ton. Where should we start, though? Should we start with the depth chart, or should we start with the top offensive and defensive players that they graded on the game? What are you guys thinking? What are we feeling?
I'd say go ahead with those top players, because if you go through the depth chart, you're pretty much going to give away all the top players.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, let's start off with offense here, and we'll go from 10 down to 1. Up top here is Randy Pittman at number 10. He's ranked with an 80 overall ranking there. Gunnar Hansen, Florida State's new left tackle, ranked as an 80 there. Richie Leonard is at 81 at number 8. And then number 7 is Cam Davis at an 81 ranking.
Which was interesting to me, but I know we'll get back to it.
Yeah, we'll jump into that one. Deuce Robinson at number 6, ranked at 83. Thomas Castellanos at number 5 at an 83 ranking. Rodell Williams, 83. Squirrel White at number 3 with an 85 overall rating. And then also, too, Luke Petitbon at number 2 with an 85. And Micah Pettis, Florida State's new right tackle, at 89 overall ranking. First off, the first thing that just jumps out to me is, holy hell, a lot of offensive linemen. FSU fans should be going crazy right now. This is awesome. This is great. All of your offensive linemen, man, they're on the top 10 list, man, for EA Sports. Go crazy.
It's great. It's just not fun to play with in the virtual world, especially when you want some explosive players. I think they really did Deuce Robinson dirty here. I mean, only, I believe, at 88 speed or so. Like, I'm playing with him, and not only that, even worse, 87 speed. So he's pretty slow in the game. And then even worse, I'll have him on a fade route, and for some reason the corner is playing 10 yards off, and then the safety will come help. And I'm like, this guy's, I mean, he's getting blanketed out there. It's just not even fair. And then, so at least for me right now, Squirrel White, I mean, he's been my main weapon with that 95 speed, the top on Florida State's roster in the game. That's been a guy I've been able to create some big plays with.
And what's crazy for me is my top 10's different. I don't know if they've already updated rosters.
Is it really?
Are we doing a live check right now?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. So my 1 through 10, Jeremiah Wilson has a 90, Darrell Jackson and Micah Pettis has an 89, Shaheem has an 88, Squirrel White 85, Pedwan 85, Deuce Robinson 83, Castellanos 83, Elijah Herring 83, Rodell Williams 83, and James Williams 83.
Well, this is just offense.
Oh, my bad. That makes more sense. I was trying to double check it on the fly. They also have a random generated running back that's higher than Pittman as an 81. But yeah, the running backs were interesting for me. I feel like they're almost backwards because the lowest rated running back on the roster is Jalen Lucas as a 78.
Yeah, it's kind of all over the place there. Just they weren't really sure how to grade those running backs, and Roydell, the highest on the team after only playing in a couple of games last season while limited with an injury in 2024. And I mean, just across that, sticking with the running backs first, I guess Usman Chroma, not in the game. Then you go to wide receiver, Mekhi Danzy, Elijah Moore, not in the game, along with some of the true freshman guys. And then at tight end, Landon Thomas, not in the game. That one hurts. So some big misses on that Florida State offense, especially, Landon Thomas, a guy that's going to be a starter for Florida State. Mekhi Danzy, you all want to see his speed out there. Elijah Moore with that size and potential. And then obviously Chroma, I mean, the crown jewel of that 2025 class, and maybe could be that starting running back for Florida State at some point in 2025. So just got to hope, maybe those guys get added to the game here in the next couple of weeks or months. And
Landon Thomas was in the game last year. I think he was one of the guys that was added a little later, but I know he was in the game. We were trying to remember if Mekhi Danzy was last night or not. I don't think he ever was. Sam Singleton's not in the game. Once again, he wasn't in the game last year. Tarek Mallory, true freshman, isn't in the game. And I think Chasten Brown is the only other guy on offense that wasn't in the game from what I could see.
Sandman Thompson as well, true freshman center.
I'm pretty sure Mekhi Danzy. It's very interesting. Mekhi Danzy is not in there because I'm pretty sure he replied to a tweet where they did not list Mekhi Danzy in the top 10 of fastest players in the game, and he replied to it like tweeting at EA Sports like they got to fix that. So maybe
they snubbed him. They gave him 0 speed.
Huh?
They snubbed him. They gave him 0 speed.
He ain't in the game, is he? He's not even in the game.
Yeah, if we could add him, add Landon, add Chroma,
I'm sure. I would imagine since maybe Usman came in later in the summer class, summer enrollees, maybe we're working on trying to get him out there. I don't know if they also do go off of like any kind of practices or things that they're hearing or whatever going inside the programs. I don't know how they do these rankings. I have no idea. Do we know? Is there any kind of inside scoop of how to do this? Or they just take guesses off of national outlets and just throw it into AI and they just kind of give them projections of where they'll be? Because I feel like that's what they do with Rodell Williams. I mean, national outlets still talk about Rodell Williams as that number one guy. I'm just going off of the spring. I still am not ecstatic about him. Wasn't ecstatic about his play last season. I know he was injured at the latter part, but still at the early parts of the season, still wasn't too intrigued off of his play, to be honest with you. Maybe it was an offensive line problem. Who knows? But until it's proven to me the first couple of games that Rodell Williams is your RB1, I just don't feel that's the case for me.
Tell you what, though, he plays well in the game. At least for me, he plays really well.
Maybe he can translate over onto the field.
He's breaking a bunch of tackles.
That's good.
Cam Davis goes crazy in Road to Glory, let me tell you.
Micah Pettis, number one, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, come on here. We can't overlook this. I mean, you've got 4 offensive linemen in here. Thoughts on this? I mean, 3 of them being your transfers over there, but Luke Pettibon, I think you swapped that out. Luke Pettibon is your number 1, Micah Pettis being number 2 there, in my opinion. But, I mean, if you're an FSU fan, I mean, you wanted a revamped offensive lineman. I know this is just a video game, but you'll take anything you can get, man. You'll take anything you can get. I'll take anything. I'll just take a block. Just block somebody. But
yeah,
Micah Pettis, man, number 1. What a time to be alive.
To say that offensive line in college football 25 was ranked pretty high as well, and we saw what happened when it got to real life. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just got to hope that college or EA Sports and college football 26 are wrong again, but this time it'll end up good for Florida State.
Yeah, and I think they got him right for the most part this year because it is a very good run blocking offensive line. At least they project to be in real life, and they're a great run blocking offensive line. In the game and pass blocking, it comes and goes, which is kind of how I expect it to be this year. But they should be road graders up front when they're running the ball, especially when you have Micah Pettis' 6'7", 360-pound self.
Please. Man, I'm praying, man. There's like times where I just wake up in the middle of the night. I'm like, man, I have nightmares over that offensive line. And I have good dreams. It was really on my trip when I was in the islands. I had really good dreams that, holy crap, 15-yard run, beautiful hole, back-to-back beautiful holes. Holy crap.
I don't need to hear about your wet dream, man.
I dream about a good offensive line. I don't know about any other FSU fans do, but man, just a man, like, it was so depressing last year to watch FSU's. Then you'd put on a primetime game with some of these top college teams, and you just see someone blocking the hell out of someone in the trenches. And you're like, man, oh man, maybe one day. Herb Hand, though, he's going to save us, baby. Hopefully. We'll see. It's a nasty disease that Atkins put on that offensive line. Let's keep on moving on forward the defensive side of the ball, where Tony White's going to save the defense here. Florida State's new defensive coordinator. Let's look at these rankings, though. KJ Sampson and Kevin Wynn. Kevin mother effing Wynn at number 10 there. I love seeing a true freshman ranked up there. Their overall rating is at 79. Omar Graham Jr., linebacker there. He's got an overall rating of 79 as well. And then Daniel Lyons is at an 81. Stephon Thompson is ranked at number 7 here with an overall rating of 81 as well. Deontay McCray, 81. Elijah Herring at 83. I'm liking this. James Williams at an 83 as well. Shaheem Brown all the way at an 88 at number 3 there. Daryl Jackson at an 89. And then the only player on FSU's roster is someone that hasn't even played a game yet for Florida State yet in the Garnet and Gold. And that's Jeremiah Wilson, the Houston cornerback, rated as a number 90. Y'all's thoughts on this one? This one's kind of sporadic a little bit, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of depth there up front for Florida State, especially alongside that interior in the game. I think, 5 defensive tackles ranked in the top 11 of the roster on that defense for the Seminoles. So that's pretty wild, and it gives you a lot to play with, especially Kevin Wynn starting out there 79 as a true freshman. In my dynasty, I personally redshirted him just because of the way the rotation and stuff works in the game. It's like harder for players to rotate. So unless he's starting, I'm trying to get that red shirt in so I can keep him for 4 more years with the redshirt freshman. So he's going to be really good by the end of my dynasty. But, I like that depth on the interior for Florida State. And then Shaheem Brown, I hate to say it, I just think he's a tad bit overrated after that 2024 season. I
definitely agree with that. I would also like to I would like to quibble with their linebacker ratings a little bit. Juice Cryer to me was Florida State's best linebacker last year, and he's a 75 overall. Blake Nicholson's a 77. I think Cryer needs to be at least where Omar Graham is at a 79. Other than that, I don't really have too many disagreements on the defensive side. I actually didn't redshirt Kevin Wynn because they kind of changed the formula this year on redshirting players and how many people transfer. Like the transfer portal in this game's a lot different, and a lot more players are going to transfer if they're not playing. And I didn't want to take that risk. So Kevin Wynn gets substituted in here and there just to make sure he sees the field, and then hopefully he doesn't transfer because the defensive line's going to look rough if he's not there.
Well, I didn't know about that part, so I might have to go take that red shirt off.
Yeah, last year you would only get like 2 or 3 transfers per team per year. Now it can go between like 20 and 25. So I'm making sure that the key guys are playing a little bit. If it's a random freshman, then yeah, sure, I'll redshirt them, hope they stay. But yeah, those big ones like Kevin Wynn, he's playing just here and there. Same with Javon Boggs on offense. I just want to make sure they're not leaving.
I really think Elijah Herring should have been higher. I think you swap out, you put out Shaheem Brown from 88, you put him to 83. I don't think you put Elijah Herring at 88, but you put him around that 85 range. I mean, I think he's going to be one of your pivotal pieces on this defense, and just the way that he played throughout his career, his production, his versatility. He's more of a better rating, in my opinion, than what it would be for Shaheem Brown. D-Jack, 89, that makes sense. And then Jeremiah Wilson coming in.
D-Jack is so good.
Well, and dude, they're going up. Yeah.
He is so good in this game. In my first dynasty game against Bama, and I only play on Heisman, he had, I think, 2.5 sacks. And I'm using linebackers and safeties, and he's just wrecking their offensive line.
Maybe what we do is we stream the game, but I just help commentate it, and I just give my thoughts on it. We just hang out and have a good time. I don't.
Do we need a matchup? Do we need a matchup of me versus Dustin? No, of me versus Dustin this year with Logan commentating.
I can. Yeah, Dustin feels like he can take on VZ like that. I don't know that. I feel like I'm more of a. I play more shooting games and Call of Duty games than I do, and I haven't played EA Sports in a while since we played that first week. I got kind of impressed, man.
I probably put him out of the college football mood, whereas I
did
continue to wear that game out.
Yeah, I know. Well, I see it too. Well, I'm looking in Discord. I'll see that what game you're on, and it would have always been EA Sports. I'm like, I just have no chance probably here in a few weeks to even have to even play with them. I can watch. I can commentate. Maybe I can commentate a DLU versus Austin, and we do FSU versus Alabama, and see how that goes. But yeah, Deontay McCray in here, though. I mean, someone that, when coming in as a transfer wasn't someone that we were like, holy smokes, massive pickup for Florida State on the defensive line. He's going to be a pivotal player. He's going to be a starting guy there for you 100%. But now. I mean, at least EA Sports are rating him up here as an 81, but seems like they feel like he is going to be a big productive piece for Florida State. Thoughts on that one there?
Yeah, I've said it a couple of times. I'm pretty high on this guy. Coming over from Western Kentucky, where he was a pretty solid run stopper over there for the Hilltoppers, and hoping that he can open up his pass rush a little bit more consistently at Florida State. And the good thing is, I mean, he's going to have a guy right next to him. Also, was just talking about him dominating in the virtual gridiron, but Daryl Jackson, who is going to take up plenty of attention for himself and allow a guy like Deontay McCray to potentially flourish here in Garnet and Gold.
And to that point about being next to him, the game did do a good job of implementing Tony White's scheme, I think, because just Florida State's base defense, they have the 3-3-5, 4-2-5, multiple fronts. Like to me, they did a much better job on defense this time. I'm having a blast playing defense this year. It is interesting. I don't know if McCray is going to be this good because he is pretty good in the game. But I do like how they're respecting him and this defensive line as a whole. This defense should be pretty good in general, and it's going to be led by that defensive front.
Mm-hmm. Jeremiah Wilson, man, I'm excited to hear some things about him in fall camp once we get closer to that, because I was mentioning it earlier, and depth is going to play a big role in how this defense performs this upcoming season. And Jeremiah Wilson can show up with the pedigree and that kind of production he played with at Houston, bring that over to FSU side. It's going to be really interesting to see how Tony White utilizes that young man. That's going to be fun to watch.
Excited about that kid. I don't know
if
everyone got a chance to listen to his introductory interview a couple of weeks ago, but I mean, he sounds like the real deal, and it seems like he's trying to come in and be a leader for Florida State on that defensive side of the ball. Obviously, already has that experience playing under Tony White at Syracuse, so he knows exactly what's expected out of him in this 3-3-5 defense. And, all three of his years at the college level so far, those two at Syracuse, and then last season at Houston, he's played exclusively in a 3-3-5 defense. So, I mean, he's got as much experience in this system as anybody on FSU's roster, and I think he could be a really big playmaker for the Seminoles in 2025.
Let's wrap up the show here on a topic surrounding Leonard Hamilton and an NIL.
We're not doing the depth chart?
Oh,
no, we don't. Do we need to?
We don't need to,
but we can run through it real quick. Let me pull it up here. I got it in the notes. Quarterback, obviously starting Thomas Castellanos, Brock Glenn, Kevin Sperry. I'm just going in order here. 1, 2, 3. Running back, Roydell Williams, Cam Davis. And then you've got Jalen Lucas at the very bottom. They've got a computer-generated guy as a third running back. Wide receiver, Squirrel White, Deuce Robinson, LeWayne McCoy, Javon Boggs, BJ Gibson, and Camden Fryer. Tight end, you've got Randy Pittman, and you've got Marquise Douglas, as we were talking about earlier. You don't have Landon Thomas in the game. Left tackle, Gunnar Hansen. Left guard, Richie Leonard. Center, Luke Pettibon. Right guard, Adrian Medley. Right tackle, Micah Pettis. And then going over to the defensive line, left defensive end, you've got James Williams there, backed up by Demonte Diggs and Jaden Jones. And then you've got your right defensive end with Amari Williams, LaJesse Harold, and Grant Fielder. And then you've also got your defensive tackles. You've got Daryl Jackson Jr., you got Deontay McCray, Daniel Lyons, Kevin motherfucking Wynn, and KJ Sampson. Then you got your linebackers, your Sam linebackers, Jaden Parrish. Then you've got your Mike linebacker, Stephon Thompson, Blake Nicholson behind him, along with Juice Cryer, and your Will linebacker, Elijah Herring, Omar Graham Jr., and Caleb Vale, the UNC transfer there. And your secondary, your cornerbacks are Jeremiah Wilson, Quindarius Jones, Charles Lester III, Kai Bates, and Jabril Rawls. Your slot cornerback, Edwin Joseph. Free safeties, KJ Kirkland, then Earl Little Jr. and Max Redman. And your strong safeties are Shaheem Brown, Conrad Hussey, and Ashlyn Barker. Your special teams kicker, Jake Weinberg. Your punter, Mac Giamento. And your kickoff specialist, Jake Weinberg. Long snapper, Mason Arnold. Kick returners, Jalen Lucas and Roydell Williams. punt returners, Elaine McCoy and BJ Gibson. And I'm not going through all this extra silly stuff. I mean, you got gadget players, Squirrel White and Jalen Lucas for your speed. You like the way I said Chiomento?
I don't know why you had to put the accent on there.
It needs to be said that way. It needs to be said that way.
I don't think it does.
Mac Chiomento? We got to find something. We don't have the punter from down under anymore. We don't have him. We don't have Master Mono anymore. So you got to find something fun to say about the specialists. And we also are missing out, man. It was rough going through spring and not having D-Lou have the tally marks for the field goals made for Ryan Fitzgerald. And I don't know how we're going to get through fall camp without that. I really don't. I have no idea.
Drone, baby.
Get the drone. Don't tell Derek. We're running the drone. Keep an eye out. They won't be able to tell with all that. We should have what about the football only facility? We're getting close with that, aren't we? Around August, next month.
Yep, should be getting near completion. They're going to move in there during that bye week in September after the East Texas A&M game. They've got that bye week, East Texas A&M bye week, and then Kent State. So during that bye week is when they're going to move into that football only facility, and obviously by then, Doak Campbell Stadium will already be rocking.
They're overlooking Kent State. Oh no!
Come on, man, Dustin. I mean, you could sneak in there. You're already wearing black and everything. You're trimming up. It's gonna be hard to find you. And that's a big old facility. You can sneak in there, get those updates on the long snapper competitions and kicking updates. Anything about this depth chart stand out to you guys? I mean, obviously, it's hard to even. First of all, it's a video game. Number two, is there's some people that aren't even in the game, and then number three, there's computer-generated names called Wade McLaughlin. Would that be sad if I named an actual player on the roster?
I mean, I'm pretty sure that's Kyle Morlock. It's the guy's 6'6", 250.
Okay, well, yeah, there's Ike Copeland as the fullback. He's a junior, by the way. Everybody, keep an eye out for Ike Copeland. Watch out.
Forget about Adrian Webster at running back.
Ooh, number 3 running back, RB3 over Jalen Lucas.
That is insane.
There was another fun one, but I already forgot his name.
I just don't know why EA Sports, like, of course, you got to use the computer-generated guys, fill out the roster. How the hell are you going to make them higher rated than actual real-life players?
Oh, my favorite was the backup quarterback, Tanner Applewhite.
Oh, my God, I forgot about that one.
Second highest rated quarterback on the team.
How did I forget about that one?
Tanner Applewhite.
Applewhite? What is he, quarterback?
Quarter. It is
quarterback.
It is Castellanos and then him, and then Glenn and Sperry.
Applewhite's a 75.
A 6'1" quarterback out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
That's crazy.
Glenn at 74, Sperry at 73. So again, like, have the computer generated guy on the roster to fill out the numbers. Make him lower graded than the lowest rated real life player.
Yeah, he'll be getting cut as soon as I get the opportunity.
Dang, you're making VZ squad.
Well, I don't know how it is in this game, but FSU's got a computer-generated kicker as well. And at least in the last game, whenever you had 2 kickers on the roster, it wouldn't let me cut my second kicker. Like, I had to just keep him until his eligibility expired.
For me, you usually had to wait a year and then you could cut him. But we'll see if that's the same. A couple other great auto-generated names. I think these guys are in for the Desir twins because you have Anthony McGuire and JJ Dodge at edge that are true freshmen. Because the Desir twins aren't in the game. A couple other guys that I noticed weren't in the game were Jamari Howard and Ricky Knight and Cromartie Jr. I don't know if I'm missing anyone else off the top of my head. Oh, Jamari Flagg is the other name I had written down. That's not in the
big game. Boy Jamari Flagg. Come on, man. Probably takes a little while to get that generated there. It's a big boy.
It takes a little extra gigabytes.
Yeah. Got a lot of CPU to run to generate that size of a human being, but go ahead.
I think I counted up 9 computer generated players on Florida State's roster. So over 10% of the team is fake names, even though, FSU's got over 105 players on its roster. So, I mean, theoretically, there's enough to have more real players in the game. You just got to wonder if it came down to them signing the contract with EA or something else. But regardless, a little disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is.
Yeah,
I'll take that trade off for being able to throw hats in the commitment video. on Road to Glory, because
pretty funny.
that was worth the price of admission for me. That was so fun.
Dude, you need to reenact that for Jackson State there and flip flop it. And
Jackson State's not in the game. They're not.
Man.
They're not Division One, and it's only Division One teams.
Just throw a Colorado hat then.
No, it was more fun throwing a Florida and Miami hat. Like, as soon as I saw that was an option in the game, I'm like, oh, I've got to make sure I do whatever it takes to be able to throw those hats.
There you go. Look how fast I am, guys. Look at this. I got it right here on the screen on YouTube. For our podcast listeners, you won't know what's happening, but
it's so good being able to throw the second one with the Miami hat. He just throws it over his shoulder. That's the best part. It's so good. Picks it up.
Right behind. First off, why does this guy look like he's 35?
I didn't really care that
here. What kind of video game is this? Is this GTA?
I didn't care that much about my customization because I just wanted to get this video as soon as I could. And high school is so hard in this game.
For real?
Yes, it is so hard. And it took me 4 hours to finally get that clip.
Damn.
Holy crap. Jeez.
They did it. They got some impressive details in there. Sorry, Logan. I know you're trying to move on.
No, you're good.
I did notice I was playing a night game with FSU last night in Doak, and whenever I scored, they had the light show go off. I thought that was freaking dope.
They have that. They finally have the dynamic lighting. So, like, if you start a game at 3:30, it gets darker as the game goes on.
Oh, that's a good idea.
There's a couple other things that they've done too.
But the game's still green, right?
Yeah, but that's how it's going to be in real life. We imagine.
I know, and that's what I'm saying. That's a bad telling. Since they've changed those end zones, it has not been good for FSU. So, I mean, can we not make a little bit of extra cash to paint those end zones a couple times? They got to save
money where they can, man.
Goodness, it must cost a lot then to paint those in. Shoot, just get some students to do that give them some free tickets or something. Just come on. Can't cost.
I saw Coach Waffle House said on Twitter he'll do it for free.
Yeah,
but the paint is probably expensive.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, it must be. It must be. I mean, come on. There's no way that you can't make those end zones back to being garnet. And I don't know. It just looks awful on TV. But I'm glad the game's going well, and hopefully we'll see maybe a couple other FSU players get updated and thrown into the game as well. Let's finish off the show here real quick, gentlemen, on some NIL stuff. There ain't nothing better, right? But an NIL lawsuit that's involving former FSU basketball head coach Leonard Hamilton. The lawsuit was originally filed in December, which includes 6 players from the 2023 and 2024 team. Former players are suing Primo Spears, Jalen Worley, Cameron Fletcher, Darren Green Jr., Josh Nickelberry, and Deontay Green. The players claim that Hamilton promised $250,000 each, supposedly to be delivered through business partners, not through official NIL collectives like Rising Spear. No written contracts or signed NIL agreements were presented. Everything was allegedly based on verbal promises. When the money did not come through, all the players involved left the program. According to Matt Baker of The Athletic, a Leon County judge denied Hamilton's motion to dismiss the case. The case is now tentatively scheduled to go to trial in August of 2026 as more facts are gathered. Fun times on the basketball court, VZ. What in the world's going on, man?
Yeah, I would like to point out, I believe Cameron Fletcher has dropped out of the lawsuit, so it's down to 5.
Okay.
But it's interesting, especially that they're giving it a year before the trial. If you know, and that's a tentative date for August 2026. It could be pushed back even further. But the Leon County judge believed that there's enough evidence at least presented right now to go forward with the case. So going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And as Matt Baker pointed out, it's going to be interesting to see if any of these incentives were pay to play involved. Really curious to see how it ends up working out for Coach Hamilton. Even if he's no longer the coach at Florida State, he's always going to be Florida State royalty, in my opinion. So definitely curious to see how that plays out, especially as we've talked about a lot in this podcast, the ever-evolving landscape of of NIL.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be huge, especially, depending on how the courts rule one way or another. It could set a new standard across college athletics as far as, how people promise money to players and the contracts and everything involved. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this one works out. I didn't necessarily think it was going to make it this far. I thought they might just go ahead and dismiss it. But now to know that it actually might make it to trial, I mean, that certainly says something.
Yeah.
I gotta say, man, anybody in like an administration or dealing with all this kind of stuff, we're here for you, praying for you. I couldn't imagine dealing with all this kind of stuff.
Godspeed.
You were already dealing with a whole ton of shit, but like, God dang, man, get me out and take me to a professional league, man.
We got to set up like a
awful,
crisis hotline or something. I mean, man,
dude. I mean, come on, hey, goodness gracious. And the thing is, they can't even probably get a raise for all this crap they're dealing with because they got to get the money to the players and all this kind of stuff and legal stuff. It's all got to be in all these fees they got to pay for, man. Oh, prayers to you. Shout out to you. If one of you are listening, we give you major props for the job that you have to deal with on a daily, probably, if not hourly basis. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for this week's show on Hear the Spear. If you're still hanging out with us on YouTube, hit that like button before you leave. If you're new, hit the subscribe button. All kinds of videos coming your way. We go live at least once a week here on Hear the Spear. Appreciate y'all hanging out with us. You can listen to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play. And for the most part, though, I highly suggest you hanging out with us on YouTube. Got a lot of stuff coming your way as we get closer, an inch closer to fall camp for the Florida State Seminoles as they kick off their season against Florida State. Oh, my God. Against Alabama.
Well, I mean, technically speaking, they were fighting themselves a lot last year.
You think AJ McCarron will be in attendance for that, man? That'd be great. It'd be great to see. You know what? You know what's even more fun?
What's he gonna do? Buy a ticket?
Wait, no, he's not gonna be let in. Quick question. Now, is there any? I haven't looked into this yet, but is there any way Thomas Castellanos can play another season in college football?
Yeah,
I think he can. Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, because back in his first season at the college level, whenever he played at UCF, he appeared in 4 games during the regular season, so he would have qualified for the red shirt. But then he also played in, it was either the conference championship or the bowl game. I can't exactly remember which one, but either way, since that happened over these last couple of years, it's now gotten to the point where playing in the conference championship game and in bowl games or postseason games no longer counts against your eligibility. So technically, he would be able to apply for a waiver, and more than likely he would get that waiver from the NCAA if that's something that he wants to do, if that's something that Florida State wants to do. I think probably we let this season play out and see how it's going, and then that could very well be an option that both parties decide to go down.
Yeah, it was a conference championship game that he appeared in.
Okay. I'm just leading us into, and I'm trying to build up the 2026 FSU at Alabama. Imagine Thomas Castellanos and the chatter you have going into that game and all that. I don't know. I know I'm already looking ahead a little bit, but
let's just be competitive in a month and a half or however long that game is. Let's just be competitive first.
Exactly. With a good offensive line. All right, everybody. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all's week. We'll see you next week on Hear the Spear. Peace.